You don't know? Is your coffee ready?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
well,
drinking it.
well, you better chug that coffee down so that you're ready to go for this podcast. The
Are
people
you
need
talking
to
to
know.
me or your
Yeah,
listeners?
not well, both you and my listeners need to chug some coffee so that they're ready for what's about to happen. You know what's
A
about to
couple.
happen?
What?
That's about to happen. Drum roll.
So a few years ago, this was like 8 years ago now. I did a communion talk at church,
Hmm.
and I was using referencing "The Weight of Glory," an essay
Hmm.
by C.S. Lewis.
Hmm.
And at the time, because I was 17 or 18 or whatever,
Hmm.
I I didn't understand it whatsoever. So in my
Yeah.
talk, I said, if you want to read this essay, I recommend a gallon of coffee. Recorded in front of a live audience.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Man I Want to Be podcast. We are checking out the new features on this recording software, and they have some really funny media little things that you can add in. So when Dylan tells a joke, my brother Dylan have to throw that in. Dylan's joining us today because we're going to talk about money, aren't we, Dylan?
That's it. Lots of money.
Lots of money because money's important, and how you spend your money. In your 20s and what you do will determine whether or not you live with your in-laws when you're 31 and with two children. We're actually
You're
not
not wrong.
we're not there out of need. We're out of there because they're being generous. We could have our own place, but it's just a funny joke to laugh at myself for the 4 or 5 months that we'll be spending at my in-laws. So um Dill, you were really good with money. So was Colin. Colin was a little too good with money. And
I'm going to have to correct you right there. I don't think I was
mm,
ever good with money.
well, you married a woman who's good with money, and
I've always been able to make enough money to cover up my bad money decisions.
yeah, okay, well that works too. So I couldn't have Colin on here because he hasn't made a money mistake in his life, and like, so it's like, oh, you're too much of an expert for this podcast. We need people who are kind of screwy to come on here.
I I still love that story when Colin was 2 and you were 3,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
mom took you guys to the grocery store and gave you
maybe
each
a
a
little
dollar.
older than that. Maybe like
I
four
don't
or five,
know,
four, maybe like 4 and 5.
but mom gave you each a dollar, and then you bought a candy bar and he saved his dollar,
That's
and then
right.
in the car you ate your candy bar, and then Colin said, "See, you don't have a dollar or a candy bar, and I still have my dollar."
Yeah, he probably still has that dollar. Like,
Most likely, and he could tell you how much money he's made on it by
yeah,
investing it properly.
with his spreadsheets.
There was
Mom love
another time
mom
that
loves to tell that story.
oh yeah, she told it in our FPU class
Uh
not
huh.
too long ago.
Yeah.
One time in youth group, Rob had us do an exercise in like little groups, and he said, if you had $1,000, what problem in the community would you want to solve?
Yeah.
And Colin says, when it gets to Colin's group, he says, well, I disagreed with the rest of my group, but what we're going to do is invest it into a growth stock mutual fund that will return 10% and double every X amount of years, 7.2 years to be exact. And by this time, we'll have $100,000 to pay off. And then he, went into his plan.
I would have bought a bunch of meals for the single moms for the weekend. That's what I would have done. So they didn't have to wait 32 years before they starved. But that's
Right.
what yeah. So Colin has a lot to say about money. He is an incredible saver and he's very generous. We have to give him a hard time because he did this better than both of us. And um, I was thinking, okay, so um, I was thinking about poor mom and dad as they listen to these podcasts that we do because they tried so hard for 25 years to get us to learn some stuff. And like they're just sowing seed on hard soil, like just trying to get it to take. And then finally at 25, it started to click. And for them, it probably had to be a sigh of relief. But for 25 years, it had to be like, dear God, children, learn these lessons. My
Right.
gosh. No, so it made me laugh. But you and I, so, I mean, I never had the credit card debt. Like I had a single credit card for Walmart that I had gotten in college that had a max limit of $1,200. And I maxed it out purchasing part groceries and part airsoft guns to well, so me and my roommate in my sophomore year, our little dorm room,
Ricardo?
Ricardo, our dorm room window overlooked the path around the university, and um, freshmen and their new girls, their Ring by Spring girls that they had just met during welcome week and the first semester that they were bound and determined to marry. They would go on these long walks around the university, and me and Ricardo thought it was just we just thought it was so funny to and game to like shoot airsoft baby. So by the time it hit him, it only felt like it was like 30 yards away. So by the time it hit him, it kind of felt like a little bee sting. But we just we thought it was the funniest thing. So that's I hit a max on my credit card from groceries and from buying airsoft guns, but it was $1,200. And I got my own fair share of student loans. But uh, for me, I had less of a problem with debt. I mean, we still got the student loans. Don't get me wrong. I'm eager to finish paying those down. But for me, the behavior problem I had is I just spent it, made it, spent it, made it, spent it, made it, spent it. I mean, even high school, you know, like I was making $300 a week at Men's Warehouse. I was paid on Friday, and by Saturday, I needed to go back to work because I'd spent it on just anything, Chipotle and suits, because that's what every 18 to 19-year-old kid needs is a wardrobe of suits. And so that was what I was doing. And I felt like I didn't learn my lesson to not spend every dollar I made until I was like, well, 25, because then I didn't have any money because I was interning for free. So that was
You
more
were
mine.
25 when you did that internship?
Yeah. I turned 25 like 3 weeks into it.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I there's
The reason I ask is that I'm a couple years behind on my beard growth.
you are. Yeah, you're
'Cause
you're at least 15 years behind on your beard growth.
I remember right when you were done with that internship, you had a pretty good one when we started the table,
The table. Yep.
and then I was like, that's how I'm gonna keep track of mine, and yeah, like
Nothing you can do about it.
no.
Nothing you can do about it. But yeah, so those are like I learned a lot by being poor, and I finally uh was willing to make the changes. There's somebody who said like most people don't change until it hurts too much not to change, and
Hmm.
I was so fed up with being poor and having to call dad to see if he had any extra jobs for me to do for some extra cash. I was like, all right, I'm going to finally learn to live on what I make. And then tithe. I'll talk about the tithe because the tithe, is incredible and it will change your whole perspective on money, and it's a superpower. I don't know how it works, but, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story with money, and because you just paid off all your debt, you and
Hmm.
Crystal, and
Hmm.
you went on the Dave Ramsey show,
Hmm.
um, where you publicly told America that you stole money from mom and dad.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
When I heard that, I was like, Dylan, you told America. There's like
Yep.
26 million listeners to this show.
I knew that. I knew that ahead of time. I knew
Yeah.
exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
So am I clipping at all? I'm going to
Mm-mm.
just turn down my gain a little bit. Okay. So yeah. Um, I mean, our attitudes with money were basically the same. Made it, spent it, couldn't hold on to it for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the biggest, I don't know why, I just long term rewards just don't exist for me, I guess, especially
Yes.
monetarily.
Yeah.
So the summer before my senior year of high school, I had this job doing some contract work where I made $15 an hour, which today seems like nothing,
Was that
but
with Gary Southern?
it was.
The
But
air
when
conditioners?
yeah, so
Yeah.
if you're 17 years old, making $15 an hour with no rent, nothing, and every week you get a paycheck for a little over $500 after taxes, it feels amazing.
Yeah, you were living large.
I was, yeah. And then at
That's
the end of
double what I
this,
made.
I was so excited but when I got that job, I knew exactly how much I'd have by the end of the summer, and I was going to buy myself a car going into my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have a little over $4,000. I could buy a nice piece of car. It was going to be great. And
Mm-hmm.
the end of summer came, finish up that job, and I had about, I don't know, $200. I had
Uh,
no money.
that reminded me of my internship. Hey, real quick, can you adjust your camera so that right now you've got like a little two-face thing going? There you go. Get your head in there. There you go.
Okay. It's comfortable to lean over to the side.
I bet it
Um,
is. Yeah. So
so
you made a lot of money that summer, and by the end of the summer, you had $200 left, and you were not buying a car.
maybe, yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely was not buying a car.
Yeah.
So that was my first job.
Mhm.
The rest of senior year was it was terrible.
Did you work senior year?
I once wrestling ended, I did. I tried to apply for jobs while wrestling season was going
Yeah.
on, but
Yeah.
it's just
Where were you going to work
the
on? Where you were going to just work on Sunday? You
I
had no
know
other
for a
days
couple
available.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that's when I got the job at the burger joint. Um,
Oh
and
yeah. What was
someone
that place called?
Champa Street Burger Works.
I,
It's no longer there.
I was like, that was a terrible. Their food was gross.
Their food was gross, and I remember someone like pushed really hard to get shift lead. She'd been there for like 3 years, and she was making like 25 cents an hour over minimum wage, and then she got shift lead, and they gave her like a 15-cent raise per hour.
All right.
And I was like, yeah, this is terrible.
All right. Hold on.
So
Let's see. Where's my phone? How much of an increase is that per year? Wow. 15
15%.
cents times 20, 80. Wow. 312 extra dollars per year.
Yeah,
Wow.
killing it.
You factor in vacation and you're still making less than $1 a day.
And there was no benefits. I mean, it's a fast food place, right? So that's where I worked. And I was pretty good at saving money at that job, because that was my only way to pay for textbooks in the fall, when I
Yeah.
went to community college.
Right.
And I didn't go to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I
Which is
just
okay.
stayed.
You went the right route.
In hindsight, it would have been perfect if I had been better with money.
Yeah.
Is the best way
That's
to put
true.
it.
Well, I mean, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And it was a very, very expensive way to find out what I did not want to do
That's true.
at a private Christian school.
Out of state
So,
private, yeah.
yeah.
It's
And yeah. Can't change it. Very thankful for that time in my life. But that was I look forward to paying that one for the rest of my life. Just kidding. I'll pay it off before that.
It's called a stupid tax, and sometimes everybody needs to pay stupid tax to make sure that they never have to go through that again. So
Yeah.
Okay, so that job, I was okay at saving money from it, and then I went to I only lasted like 3 weeks or whatever, and then I went to Men's Warehouse.
At Champa. You only lasted, not in college. You lasted 3 weeks at Champa.
Yeah.
Because that place was terrible.
It was. So, well, I'll just tell everyone why I quit it so quickly, is that they had a mandatory meeting on a Saturday, and I told the owner, I can't make that because that's the day of my high school graduation. And he told me, nope, no excuses. This is a mandatory meeting. So I looked at him and I said, I quit. And it wasn't like this big confrontation. It was just I can't believe you're gonna say that. So I can't work for someone like that.
That's so funny.
I was so mad. Yeah.
Oh,
So I did
that's
not.
that's my high school graduation.
Yeah. Nope. No excuses. Yeah. Okay. Bye. Bye,
That's
Felicia.
funny. Okay.
Yeah. So that's when you'd hooked around the same time. I think we had gone in to get measured for Sean's wedding. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah. So that's when you introduced me to the guys at Men's Warehouse, and I
Yeah.
applied then and got a job there.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
that's how I started at Men's Warehouse, and then the spending continued because hey, just like you said, there's Chipotle right next door. There's nearby, and then next door was literally Buffalo Wild Wings, where I'm pretty sure I spent $10,000 on wings over my 2 year career.
You probably did. Every time
I
you were stressed, you
love
ordered wings.
I loved those wings too,
Mm.
and I actually went in there. Probably it was probably a year ago now, and I almost threw up
That's
afterwards.
because they're disgusting,
It's
Dylan.
disgusting. Oh
You
my gosh, I can't believe I ever ate those.
no, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say that, but no, they're disgusting. And you work at Men's Warehouse, and the clothes at Men's Warehouse. If you work there and you have to wear those clothes every day, you want to look good.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to wear suits.
Yep. And you're helping people pick out,
Yeah.
$500 suits every day. You want to wear one yourself.
Yeah,
So
and you can like, what was that thing you could do where you could like, it would pay for it out of your check.
PMDA,
That's right.
payroll merchandising debit account or
Yeah,
authorization, something like that. Where it wasn't it wasn't a
I
loan.
can't
It was
believe you
just
actually know the PMDA acronym.
dude. Sometimes I remember things and I'm like,
More
how
like
do I remember that? I don't know.
paycheck must disappear for attire or yeah, something. Anyway, we'd get suits.
Yep, lots of suits. Kept on buying them. I think when I finally moved out of that job 2 years later, I was made assistant manager at 19
At
years old.
19. Yeah. Dylan has a knack for getting, I think I've said this on the podcast. Dylan has a knack for getting promoted wherever he goes
Way
to
too
positions
soon.
he shouldn't have.
Yep.
A 19-year-old managing a retail store. Like
Yep. Closing the drawer with thousands of dollars in cash, managing people who'd been there for 20 years.
John Bender.
Well, yeah, I mean, those old guys, there was nothing to manage. They knew how to do their job. So,
Yeah. But it was just
as,
like John Bender served in the United States military
as a
and
Marine,
as a Marine, and you were in charge of him. You're like, like, who thought
should
about that?
I should have said, John, I did not tell you to lower your salute. Just kidding. That would be terrible.
John, as your boss, I'm going to need you to.
I'm going to need you to stop. Yeah. So when I left that job, I again had no money,
Mhm.
probably 20 suits and at least 80 dress shirts. Oh, and 20 pairs of dress shoes.
Come on now. That's $2,000 worth of dress shoes, at least.
More than that, yeah.
Yeah, at $100. And how many of those do you still have?
I have 2 suits, one blazer, one pair of the shoes,
Hmm.
one of the belts,
Yeah,
I think 5 of the ties, and none of the shirts.
none.
Yeah.
They're just gone. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a parable for somebody.
Yeah.
I don't have any of mine either, but we'll let you be the parable.
Ugh. Yeah. And of course, you do some math and then you look at, hey, if I had just saved 10% of this money,
Mhm.
like if I had invested 10% of the money that I made there into a 401k, oh
Yeah, yeah.
baby. Oh
Oh,
well.
baby. So as you're talking, and I'm reminding that I did the exact same thing that you just described at Men's Warehouse because I also had I only had 80 dress shirts. You were, I think, but I probably had 40 or 50, and I had a bunch of shoes. I had a bunch of suits, and I don't have most of those anymore. And but as you're talking, and I'm remembering doing that, all I think is like we we were so stupid.
Yeah.
like like I remember leaving the men's warehouse for my lunch break to go over to Sean's house to make sure that they were getting my subwoofer, my $800 subwoofer installed in my Loom or in what was the car? The LeBaron,
The LeBaron
that I
was a
was only
beautiful
going to be
car.
driving for 2 more months before I
Mhm.
left it at home. But I had to make sure I had that an $800 subwoofer. Like so
Hey,
so stupid.
it sounded great as we were waking up the neighbors on our drives to 7-Eleven to get monsters when we came back to play more Halo.
Like golly, Mom, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
well.
glad we can laugh about it now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time to always be stupid with your money. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I'm just gonna keep going with the story, and I'll go back later and
Yeah, yeah,
revisit the
yeah.
lessons that I learned. So I left. Well, before I left that job, as you know, I was moving to Boulder because I thought that I was. Oh, and throughout this time, I was a full time manager at Men's Warehouse, and I was also going to school full time.
Yeah.
I was an
Oof.
engineering major, taking 18 credit hours, Calc 3, physics, all the stuff that nerds enjoy. And
That's quite the class load.
my that final semester was the best call that was the best GPA I had ever had. I had like a 3.9 GPA
Wow.
during prom season at Men's Warehouse.
Jeez, good for you.
It was wonderful.
You had bags under your eyes that dropped to the floor, but
Yeah, at
I'm
19,
just kidding.
19-year-old manager. No, I was probably 20 at that time. Anyway,
Yeah.
so but before this is where the story. So at this point, I just spent what I had, but I
Yeah.
never had a credit card.
Hmm.
So at the time, as you know, I was dating someone else,
Hmm.
and we were actually getting pretty serious, and I wanted to buy an engagement ring.
Hmm.
So I went over with her to a store, and Crystal knows this whole story, so I'm
Hmm.
not giving anything up here, and picked out a very expensive ring. Um,
Name the
and I
price still.
it was either a little over three or a little over $4,000.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say like $12,000.
No,
You know what they say?
oh,
3 year salary.
3 years salary. Yeah, that is about 3 times my annual
Okay.
salary as a manager.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's what I spent on Chelsea's engagement ring.
yeah, but you weren't 20 years old.
That's true.
About
That's true.
to yeah.
That's true.
So I did not have that much money, and they said, "Oh, no problem. You can just get our credit card, and then it's a 0% interest over 18 months or whatever. So as long as you pay this amount per month, you'll pay it
How
off with no interest."
how nice of them.
I know it's very kind. So I bought it, and I held on to it. Moved to Boulder, and that was the start of my credit card spending addiction,
Mm,
is what I'm labeling it as.
mhm,
And then when I worked in Boulder, I was working at a bank where everything is income is generated by loans.
mhm,
You're gonna get your loan, but you're gonna make your 4% loan. You're gonna make 8% on that money, and then the difference
mhm,
there, that 4% is called arbitrage. That's how a lot of business people make money developing real estate and their
mhm.
business lending and all these things. And
Yeah.
that was the culture that I was kind of enveloped in.
Mhm,
And what they don't tell you is that there's a huge difference between a business mortgage to buy an investment property and a credit card that makes it seem like rich this is what rich people get, their 3% back on their American Express card. So
yeah.
I wasn't paying attention. All I knew is that I could make the minimum payments. I was buying stuff online, buying food for lunch, all this stuff. Just making minimum payments, applying to new credit cards, and uh, yeah, a year goes by. I got promoted again. um, and anyway, a year goes by, and uh, that girl and I broke up. So now I was left with this engagement ring that I never gave her,
Hmm.
and that's when I um, looked at my balances, and I had a little over $20,000 in credit card debt.
Mm. In a year, right? Year and a half.
About a year and a half, yeah.
About a year and a half.
Yep,
Yeah.
it was a true addiction.
Yeah.
I went to go sell the ring, but at some point it got a crack in the
Mm.
diamond. I have no idea how because it literally just stayed at the bottom of my sock drawer.
Hmm.
Anyway, I got $300 for it
Mm. There was a crack in it. They
in
who
the diamond.
did that is that what the store told you?
That's what the jeweler told me, and
Yeah, I
she
feel like they're lying to you.
no, well, this wasn't the same store. They
Mm.
wouldn't accept it for a return or anything.
Mm.
So I took it to a different jeweler, and they had me look at it under the microscope, and yeah, there was a huge crack in it. It was split in half.
I wonder if they sold it to you that way. Diamonds
They,
are really hard to like break.
yeah, I think the jeweler said like it was probably set incorrectly,
Mm.
and then yeah, pressure just
Yeah.
it
So you got
twisted it.
10%. You sold it for 10%. What have you paid for it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So I was at that point I was sick to my stomach. I didn't have
Yeah.
any student loans, no car payments, nothing. But I was sick to my stomach every day because my minimum payments were $600 a month.
Hmm. And you're 22, right? At this point?
So
21?
I was 21.
21.
I was disgusted with myself, and growing up Dave Ramsey style, I didn't. This had nothing to do with anything that mom and dad said, but I didn't feel like I could tell them what really happened.
Yeah.
So I decided that the best thing to do is lie. Well, not I didn't lie. I just didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell them.
You're not the only person who's fallen for that, by the way. You're like,
I know.
man, I really can't get caught. I better lie.
Yeah.
Make something up.
Isn't there a story in the Bible about that where
Yeah.
instead of getting caught, he like sends the lady's husband into war and gets him killed?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this is a story as old. This is a story as old as time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So um anyway, I stopped putting money on credit cards. I never missed a
Mm.
single payment. My total balance came out to I think it was $26,000 when I finally stopped with credit cards.
Wow.
And then that's when I also told mom and dad. It
Hmm.
was I'll never forget. It was New Year's Day of 2019.
Mm.
I called and dad and said, "Hey, is mom there? I need to tell you guys something." And it was great because mom and dad always so graceful, maybe too graceful, but you know they're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, what are you going to do to fix it?" So I told them, "Hey, this is my plan." Um, yeah. Well, this story gets better than than that. I also was hoping to go back to school,
Hmm.
and mom still had some money in my. It wasn't in a college fund; it was just an investment account set aside for my college.
Yeah.
And mom, I've already said this on live radio, so I'll just say it
You
here.
told 26 million Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mom said, "I'm going to transfer you this money. This is for your school. Just pay school when the bill comes. I
Hmm.
trust you."
Hmm.
Well, she shouldn't have done that apparently. Now I say that I stole it. Mom transferred the money into my name, and the only time that I dipped into that money is when I moved from Missouri back to Colorado.
Right.
Remember, I had that stretch of time when I didn't have a
Yep.
job. I dipped
Hmm.
into that fund for about 2 months,
Hmm.
and my truck had a huge repair, and then
Yeah.
my phone broke.
Yeah.
So 2 months
I
of
remember that.
expenses. I didn't put anything on a credit card, but that was enough to that plus the classes that I was taking.
Mhm.
So I can't remember the exact amount, but it was about $6,000 that I took from that fund.
Mhm.
So uh, I I
Hey,
remember.
mom, if you're listening to this right now, I just want you to know that you can trust me with $6,000 if you want to send me a little check right now. I promise I will only use it for the things that are necessary.
So remember at the beginning of this podcast when you said Dylan's much better at money than I ever was. No, listen to this. No, I was not. So in
Yeah.
addition to paying off $26,000, I now had to tell my mom that I that the money that she transferred, I effectively stole.
Mm.
There's a way to make it different, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you the reason that I use that word is because it helped me keep a frame of reference for the sin that I committed.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not something that was done to me. This is something that I knowingly did.
Right.
So
Right.
I had that very hard conversation with mom and dad at
Hmm.
Christmas in 2019.
Yeah. I
That
just.
was so awkward.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm.
and
That was that. So we were at the farm.
we were at the farm, yeah, because
Yeah.
I wanted to tell them in person.
Yeah. Yeah. And Crystal was there.
Yeah, my fiance,
Hey, it was a good thing we were doing the family book club on a book about forgiveness. You
maybe.
could, you were like, "Hey, mom, dad, this book's all about forgiveness. This is a great time to re-up on."
So that was the time that was the final straw when I decided it's actually time to make a change.
Yeah.
I said that I have some sort of problem with
Hmm.
money. I can't
Hmm.
keep it. I apparently steal it.
Hmm.
Um, I need accountability. I need help.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
that's when I got the book Every Man, God's Man,
Mhm.
which is one of those. It's kind of a cheesy, manly book, but
Mhm.
it's really good. I recommend it for anyone. And I found a
Mhm.
Bible verse that said, um, of course, now my computer's too slow for me to look it up. The righteous man may fall 7 times, though he rises again.
It's in Proverbs
So yeah, that's what I
24. Proverbs
that's what I
24.
that's what I started telling myself every day.
Mm.
Was the righteous man can always rise again. I can be better than this. I can overcome this. I need to change everything about me from the inside out.
Mm.
So, um, Crystal and I decided from now on we didn't join our accounts, but we are going to be accountable to each other.
Mhm.
Crystal almost broke off our engagement because of it. Um, the re now
Wow.
there's another story there because at one point in my mind I had planned out like, hey, as long as I do these things, um I can pay my parents back with them never knowing. This is before I had told them.
Mm.
And then that day I was listening to the Dave Ramsey show,
Mhm.
and a husband calls in and says, "Hey, so I've lied to my wife for the last 7 years. I've been hiding my gambling addiction, and I have $200,000 in debt." And
Oh my god.
she has no idea, but we're going to be foreclosed on the house in the next month.
Whoa.
And that was a sucker punch to the gonads for me,
Yeah.
because I'm listening to this call and I'm like, okay, I already know that this is an addiction, so I need to come clean with this and just
Yeah.
I need to nip this in the bud. So
Because you were like, that could be me.
it could be it because what like that's the thing about a cycle of lies is that the web gets more and more complicated as things go on.
Yeah.
So that day Crystal picked me up from work. I told her and I said, I understand if you want to break up this engagement right now. And she said, I not right now, but I still need to pray about that. Right,
Mhm.
because I had deceived her too. Then I told
Yeah.
mom and dad, um, and mom. That's when mom told me the hardest thing that she's ever had to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she did it was not out of spite. It
Mm-hmm.
was very truthful. She said, "I'm not sure you should be getting married right now."
Mm. Mm.
And that's the last thing that I'll say to you about it.
Mm.
And I was left in tears. I don't know if you remember, but that whole trip at the farm, I was kind of an emotional wreck, and that's
Oh,
why. This is
oh,
why.
Del, I remember.
Of course you
Oh,
do.
I remember.
So, yeah.
We had to have a family talk, and it was like, "What, Dill? What's wrong?"
So yeah,
Took the
lots
joking
of
too far. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but
lots of things.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually, Crystal and I went for a walk, and we decided to pray together. And I remember her. She got as we were praying, she stopped me and she said, "I'm getting a vision," and it was a if I remember correctly, she said a broken pot that was still it was like a clay pot that had been broken, but
Mm.
the potter was still like molding it. It was a weird
Mm.
dream,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like it was already made and already broken, but still being
Mm.
molded. So
Mm.
it was like, okay, that's a right. This is a positive sign. And from then on, I have um, been completely open and honest with mom and dad with everything. When we made our debt snowball to pay off
Mm-hmm.
all of our debt, we put that it was 6,500, I think, is what we landed on is how much we
Mm-hmm.
paid them back.
Mm-hmm.
We paid off all the credit card debt, all of Crystal's student loans, and now we're in a much different place financially.
Yeah, you
Um,
guys paid off how much debt? How fast?
$67,000 over 27 months.
27 months. And you're how old? You guys are how old?
We paid it off when I was 26, and she was was about to turn 28.
That's right.
26 and
Um,
27.
that's right. So I mean, because as you're talking, there's a lot. There's the stuff that's about money, and then there's other stuff that it's not just about money. Most of the money problems aren't really about the money. It's about there's like other stuff going on underneath, which
Well,
is I feel like people it should be pretty obvious from the story that you just told.
money is never the problem. It is
Yeah.
always the a manifestation of an underlying problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true in any really psychological disorder with behavior. Like two
Mm-hmm.
behaviors can be similar, but there's different
Mm-hmm.
underlying problems.
Yeah.
And that's why you always have to look at you can't look at what the symptom is. You have to
Yeah.
look at the actual problem.
Yeah. Well. Um,
Crystal's engagement ring was a little under 300, by the way.
yeah, you owe her a ring, is what you owe her. You owe her a fat rock. One for just being married to you, because you have a sword in the background.
Hey, that was a gift.
it's a cool sword. Um, but no, you just listed off so many things, that could be like a. I'm trying to decide which direction I want to go with you real quick first, because you learn. Let's talk about the very practical stuff, and then let's
Sure.
maybe get into like the deeper stuff. So, what was money? Always comes down to behavior. Rarely does it come down to income, and I can say from firsthand experience that it is behavior, not income. Now, income for sure plays a role, for sure. It's very hard to make any progress when you make 30 grand a year, 20 grand a year. It's very hard. But, after that, if you're above that, even if you're at that, behavior matters significantly more. And I can say that from personal experience because for a 3-year period, I couldn't get over that $30,000 mark no matter what I tried. And for one of those years, I had significantly more money than I had in the previous two. And the only thing that changed was my behavior. And now, like me and Chels, behavior got better and better as the years went on. More self control, much more disciplined, more planned, more openness. Um, Haven't fastest way to double your income is to get married. By the way, if you want a secret on how to double your income as fast as possible, just get married.
Well, I think we tripled ours.
Well, yeah, that's because you've got a money making machine for a wife over there. And so
She married someone who made $15 an hour.
yeah, man, she loves you a lot.
Apparently.
Yeah, for who you are, for sure. Definitely not what you bring to the table. We're kidding. We love Crystal. Dylan's amazing. You just got to give him a hard time. Um, anyway, as our behavior got better, and by our behavior, I mean my behavior, Chelsea has never had a problem managing money. I mean, we had some different perspectives, but she never had a problem managing money. Um, I make less money than most people. Most of the people that I know in this area that I live in, Massachusetts, is a very high income area.
Mhm.
Um, but I know just from pastoring people that I have more money to my name than they do. And it's about behavior. Um,
So even though you
and
make less, you have
yeah,
more.
I have more available. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And he'd be like, well, you living with your in-laws, and like, yeah, I'm currently living with my in-laws, been here 4.5 months. And the amount that we pay for our place that we live, including all of our bills and utilities, is still what we're paying in Denver. So we're not actually saving money. I'm renting I live with my in-laws and I rent from them,
Mhm.
and I buy all their groceries. So I'm not actually saving money by living there. Um, it's about behavior. So could you just add something to that and something that you learned so on the very practical function, practical aspect of managing money?
Oh man. Um, so the first thing is that uh, with modern technology, we have the ability to check our bank accounts whenever we want, wherever we want. And that's called bank account budgeting, where you just see what your balance is and then say, yep, I have money to spend. Or you look at it and go, oh no, rent is due tomorrow, so I can't, buy
Mhm.
Chipotle or whatever.
Yeah.
That can cause a lot of problems
Mhm.
if you don't, again, you have to take care of these problems as soon as you can.
Mhm.
So everybody, I think, has a common sense that you got to live on a budget. You got to, in order to get it ahead, you have to live on less than you make.
Can we say, if you were to define a budget, how would you define a budget?
A
What's a budget?
budget, a budget is a cash action plan.
So it's a
It's,
plan.
it's a plan for how you will spend your money every month,
Mhm.
and it's on a monthly basis or a
And
weekly basis, even.
that is key right there. It's a plan for how you will spend,
Hmm.
not a plan for how you will save. It's a plan for how you will spend, so that your
Hmm.
spending is under control.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about it is, you didn't budget for a while, right? You just kind of went on
Mhm.
off the seat of your pants.
Mhm.
Um, when you made a
I
purchase,
did bank account the thing that you just described
yeah,
very well,
hmm,
down to the cent.
good for you.
Yeah.
And when you made a purchase that you knew was not a good one,
Mhm.
how did that make you feel?
Uh, honestly, I don't. I think where I was before I didn't feel much about it.
Really?
No, well, the only reason I didn't start feeling anything about it until I was trying to improve and grow and become more disciplined in my finances, because I was just
Okay.
kind of used to like and because I worked at a restaurant for so long, restaurant people get stuck in this. If you spend what you make the night before, you literally get paid the next day. So it feels like you make more money than you actually do.
That is
So
true.
I didn't have to do as much like, oh, I only have $220 in the account to last me the next 2 weeks. It was more like, I made $180 last night. I can spend 100 and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Um, but when I started to try to get better, when I had a salaried job, when I was living on a fixed income, not cash every single day,
Hmm.
if I made a purchase that was outside of what I had planned to spend, there was this little like nagging voice that would just wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah. So let me. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get at is
Mm-hmm.
when I wasn't budgeting, every time I made a purchase, I felt a little guilty inside,
Mm-hmm.
just a tiny bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm on a very strict budget that me and Crystal set up together every month.
Mm-hmm.
When I make a purchase, there's no guilt
Hmm.
because it's in the budget.
Amen. Right.
And that's the thing about budgeting. And it's, what Jocko always talks about, discipline equals freedom.
That's right. It
And
does.
it's guilt-free spending when it's planned accordingly, right?
Yeah.
Ahead of time.
Hmm.
We are going, like we just, when we purchased our car, that was a huge purchase,
Hmm.
but it was budgeted for like 2 months in advance.
Right.
Or we just spent a lot of money on plane tickets to New Zealand, which we get to
Hmm.
go to because we're debt free and can do whatever we want now. Or, yeah. So these are all things that are budgeted for, and there's absolutely no guilt in it. But
Hmm.
before, I'd be making the same purchase, but it wasn't planned for. It wasn't. There was no money for it, and I
Hmm.
was feeling all this anxiety and guilt just build up and build up and build up inside
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
So all that to say, a budgeting, even though it's hard at first and it's weird, it actually frees you up to go, okay, this is okay to
Yeah.
buy this new shirt or these new clothes or these headphones, whatever it may be, because it's all part of your plan.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the things I've learned, so I've like everything that you shared about your story, I did. And I'm glad that glad the listeners got to hear some testimony about some people who made some big time mistakes. Because as I pastor people and I talk to people about their money and what's going on, I've learned most people just have no idea how to manage money because no one taught them.
Yeah.
I have like you and we were taught, and we just
From like
through that.
fifth grade or younger.
Yeah, yeah. We just took that knowledge and we put it out with the recycle every week. We were just like, all right, thanks. Most people though that I meet were not taught. And so when you hear word like a budget, you're like, oh, it's a spending plan, what I'm going to spend. But
Spending plan is good too. Yeah.
yeah, it's just, well, that's how I mean, like a budget's a little bit more encompassing because you got like how much you're going to save and whatnot. But what are you planning on? And what I was going to ask though is like, where do you think is the best place to learn? I think I know what you're going to say, but if you need to learn just the basics of like how to manage money, where do you think you should start?
With a yellow legal pad.
Okay.
And just do a basic search for creating your first budget.
Hmm.
And here's the thing: you're gonna have a lot of different resources,
Mm-hmm.
especially these days in the age of information.
Yeah.
But here's what I've experienced when I have helped my friends set up a monthly budget for the first time.
Yep.
They know what their monthly income is roughly,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the
Yep.
first thing that you need. How much money will I have at my disposal?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that you know is your fixed expenses: rent, food, gas, car insurance.
Yeah, we call
right?
those the 4 walls.
Four walls, yeah.
Yep.
Whatever is fixed every month, your utilities, things like that. Those aren't going to go anywhere. Those are off the top, right? List those out. And then whatever's left over is going to be what you need to designate towards your next goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where you see the actual progress be made.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So where to start? I would do a Google search on how to create a budget. You can use a yellow legal pad. I like seeing it on paper at first. We use a spreadsheet. There's so many applications that will also guide you through setting it up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I thought you were just gonna be like, just listen to Dave Ramsey.
No.
No. No. Okay.
If you can't get on a written plan first, then you're not going to make any progress with the huge goals that Dave puts out there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I know so many people that like they argue. They're like, I just disagree with Dave Ramsey, and then they'll quote a real estate investor and be like, "This is how they do it." And I'm like, not even the same category of financial management, like not even at all. Dave is helping families who have salaried jobs, fixed income. They're not trying to become billionaires who are on the Bigger Pockets podcast to talk about how much money they made in real estate. That's not what he's interested in helping people fix their behavior. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I just repeat what he says all the time. If you're poor, I don't care. Like, why don't you just do what this person has said to do and just do it? Um, but which brings me to I want to talk about the tithe, because this is something I've learned a lot. I so when I didn't make a lot of money, um, I did not tithe because I didn't think I had room to tithe. I didn't have money to tithe. A tithe means tenth. It is the Christian practice. It's also a Jewish practice. Probably all major religions have it in some capacity, but it's the biblical practice of giving 10%, your first 10%, back to your local church, not to a charity, not to your choice of organization, back to a local church where you are part of a spiritual family. It's a way of dedicating the money to God. Um, and you could get into particulars about the difference between 10% to charity and whatnot. But if you're a Christian, it's to your church because your church is the one who is overseeing your soul for a lot of, But
You also need
so
to keep the lights on, pay the preacher's salary. There's a lot of practical things there.
there's a lot there. Yeah. There's the a church operates that way. Like our church here, actually, if everybody stopped tithing, the way the church is set up, they've founded a bunch of daycare centers and a school. If everyone in the church stopped tithing, the church could keep operating. Um, so which is I think is pretty awesome. Um, but the tithe is for the tither. I mean, and
Hmm.
it's for the person who is doing the tithing. And what you're doing, you're taking 10% off the top, you're giving it back to God. Um, and there's a couple things that you get to learn, and then a couple benefits that you get if you're a tither. The first thing that you'd get to learn is money. With money, numbers don't always add up, which is one of the mysteries that I don't know if we'll ever be able to figure out. You take 10%, you give it away, and somehow it multiplies to your benefit somehow. Um, it does. It's amazing.
That is true. I mean, we tithe throughout our giving, paying off debt.
Mhm.
10%. And I did. I shouldn't have, but at one point I did a calculation. We would have been debt free about 3 months before we were if we hadn't have been tithing that whole time.
Hmm.
Maybe
That's
more.
it. Only 3 months earlier.
No, no, it would have been no, no. I think it was a year and 3 months. So I don't remember. It was
Yeah.
like it was painful to see, and that's kind of on purpose, right? We
Yeah.
could have been debt free so much sooner, but we weren't, and
How
that's
many pay
okay.
raises did you get during that time?
I got one, two, three, four. I got five. Crystal, I
Yeah.
think, got two.
Yeah. That's a lot of pay raises in a 21-month period. Because so when you are a Christian, and when you are a tither, I'm not saying that tithe so you become rich. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you now enter into God's provision, and things just add up differently. Like someone gives you a car when you don't deserve a car, um, or not even that happened to me. Or you're like Dylan, and someone just gives you a car because you need a car, and I got a car for $100 when I needed a car. Like
Hmm.
you enter into a different kind of provision. So
Yeah.
you learn the numbers don't add up because money is man. I heard a pastor say this recently. I read it in Daniel Lapin's book. Money is ultimately a measure of trust, and the amount of money you have is largely determined by how much God trusts you with what you have. Um,
Hmm.
I was like,
The Matthew
that's
principle. Yeah,
yeah, it's so true.
that's great.
Um, and I don't know. I couldn't explain to you exactly how it works, but I promise you get access to different resources. You're taken care of differently when you're willing to give back, when you're willing to tithe and give back to God with that is which is His.
But yeah, it's not supposed to be explainable because it's
Hmm.
in some aspects it's a miracle in
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
and that's why it's not explainable is
yeah,
like so for example, let's take the money aspect out of it. When you go to church and you're worshiping and everything feels good and the preacher will ask, how much do you trust God?
Mm-hmm.
If you love God as we're commanded to do so, we should trust him wholly.
Mm-hmm.
That's WHOLLY
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with everything.
Yep.
If you trust God, then you wouldn't have a problem giving up 10%.
Yep.
Your
Yeah.
first 10% too. I
Yep.
remember I had this same conversation with a friend who, yeah, he said, I can't afford to tithe.
You can't afford not to tithe.
And, but he, he couldn't afford to tithe, and then he bit into his Chipotle burrito.
I just can't afford it.
Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
So, uh, there's that aspect of it too. I remember, this was when I was still in a lot of debt. I created this like forecasting spreadsheet with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I found out by the end of March with my most recent pay raise, I'm going to have an excess of, I want to say it was like, um, X amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, I have this. That's going to be great. I'll pay off some debt
Yeah.
with it, right?
Yeah.
And then a friend literally called me like 10 minutes later and was like, hey, my um, uh, funding for school didn't go through.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to get some student loans, and apparently they just changed the
I remember this.
program. Yeah, and I was like, okay, how much is it going to be? And it was like something like $15 difference
Wow.
between how much this guy owed and then how much I would have in
Yeah.
excess. And then he's like, so, well, hang on, I got to add like the student fees or whatever. And then boom,
Yeah.
it was like within $1.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, God, way to make it clear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that was directly out that I did not put that on a credit card. That was
Yeah.
directly out of my checking account
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah. I have a story like that too. When I was an intern, I needed a car. My car broke, and someone gave me a car. Just gave me a car.
Mm-hmm.
And it needed, when they gave it to me, it needed $2,400 worth of repairs. And I was like, well, you can't complain about that because, I just got a free car, but I didn't have $2,400, so I couldn't really drive this car.
Mm-hmm.
And so I fortunately live close enough to the church to make do for a little bit, but filed my taxes. Like, this was right around when tax season came up, and I got a $1,500 return. It's like, okay, that's great. I got $1,500 coming. And like 2 weeks later, when it was deposited into my account, I walk into a church on a Sunday. I haven't told a soul about the money for this car. I haven't told anybody. And a guy named Cole Berg walks up to me. Cole Berg, he's a great guy. Walks up to me and goes, "Hey man, I was praying and I just felt like God wanted me to write this check for you, and he just wants to know that he's proud of you or whatever." And I open up the check. It's $900. I'm like, I need $2,400 to fix my car, and I got $2,400. I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
it's actually crazy. You enter into a different, you enter into a different provision other than what makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've got plenty of stories about that. And one of the things that was like so interesting is I wasn't really tithing at that time, but I was given just a little bit of what I had. And I told you earlier, I couldn't get over that $30,000 mark. One was behavior. I couldn't stop what I was spending, but I also wasn't tithing. I'm working for a church. I'm not tithing because I feel like I'm too poor. And, I felt a deep conviction that it was time to like make a change.
Mm.
And so I started tithing on my tiny little salary, and it was like, I think it was like $70 is what it, every 2 weeks is what it ended up being after taxes, what I was making. And right around that time, somebody paid off a $10,000 loan for me.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Paid off a $10,000 loan for me.
But you didn't.
And
You hadn't even told anyone.
I told
If I remember right, you had like brought it up as like a prayer request, wasn't it?
I did. Yeah, I brought it up as a prayer request to some of the pastors at my last church at Red Rocks Church, and I have a theory about who paid it off, but I don't have exact info, but it was paid off.
Mhm.
So someone paid a debt on my behalf within like a couple of weeks of me tithing, which you see my eyes. I'm a little cry over here because that. Yeah, that was amazing. And then I got my first ever pay raise over 30 grand. It was like, which is amazing. And at the time, you're like, 30, you got over 30 grand, bro. You could have worked any other job. And I'm like, I did, and I couldn't get past that little thing because I live in a different kingdom. I live in a different world.
Mhm.
And there were some things that I had to learn the hard way. So, I got bumped up to 35. By the time I got married, I was making 50, and the difference in time was about a year. But I was tithing the whole time. And to this day, me and Chelsea have never missed a tithe. But one of the things that did happen is we switched from tithing on our net income to on our gross income because it says first fruits. It's like, and this is a conviction I have. You could argue it both ways, but the tithe is your first tenth. And just because the government automatically takes money from me before I see it doesn't mean it's not what I had earned. So we tithe on our gross pay. And yeah, it's significantly more money because the government takes quite a chunk. But like in the period of time between when I started tithing and today, I've gotten over $50,000 probably in pay raises plus that loan gift.
Wow.
You can't add that stuff up. And am I the richest person in the world? No,
Yes.
I live with my in-laws. So, but
Right.
I like what I want people to hear is just like a testimony from tithing matters, and it takes you into it lets God know that you trust him enough to take care of you and that you don't have to do life on your own.
Yeah.
Which is
And
like one of the big things I want men to learn from this podcast is like, you're going to be a shadow of the man that God designed you to be if you try to do this without him.
mhm.
And man, that's so real.
You have to submit to the process. And that's what I was earlier I'd mentioned, like, you go to, the how much do you trust in God? And submitting to that in a providential manner, I think, is more difficult for men,
Yeah.
because we want to
Mhm.
do it on our own.
Yeah.
And especially what is a woman's number one fear in a marriage? Financial
Insecurity.
financial
Financial
insecurity.
insecurity.
Yeah, that is the number one fear that women have.
Yeah.
Because they hear all these stories about people going broke, going bankrupt rather, because of all sorts of different things. And then as a
Yeah.
man, you bear that responsibility and you want to provide, but first you're told that you
Yeah.
have to give up 10%. That is a hard thing, and
Yeah.
it's meant to be hard.
Oh yeah.
And
You know,
doing hard things is uncomfortable for a reason. Doing
yeah.
hard things is good for your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good for your soul. That's so true. Amen. So did you know that in Genesis when God curses the consequences for the snake, for Eve, and then for Adam,
Mm-hmm.
it says that by the sweat of your brow you'll bring forth vegetation from the earth. By the sweat of your brow. That means it's a what's the word? Barking up the wrong tree is no, it's not a simile, it's not a metaphor, it's an idiom. It's an idiom for you will do your work with anxiety, wondering if you're going to make enough.
Interesting.
That's what that means. And yeah, so the tithe is God's gift to humanity to break that. Ooh, am I going to make enough? Am I going to make enough? Am I going to make enough? And what it comes down to, like, it's also the only command where God says, "Test me on this. Test me." It's the only one. And where is that? Is that in Habakkuk? He says, "Test me." Test me. I'm doing a quick Google search. Test me on this, says the Lord. Malachi 3:10. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse so that there may be food in my house. And see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will be none who can contain it. So all that to say, like, because remember, money is just not, it's not just about money. What's that thing Mom used to say? It's not about this, but it's about that.
Mm-hmm.
With money, there's always that underlying thing. And one of the things that I hope men can learn, not just from the testimony that you shared and from what I shared, one, it's not too late for you to turn your life around, for sure, and make better choices. It's not too late for you to receive grace and mercy and help in your present time of need. But also, this is a great chance for you to learn that God's going to take care of you. He will take care of you. He promised, and you can trust him to take care of you, and you don't have to do it all on your own. And money is the first place you're going to find out that measure. But I'm willing to bet you're trying to go about the rest of your life on your own, and it's beating you down. Like, listeners. And you don't have to live that way, because it's not about this, but it's about that. And that was a little more serious than I thought I was going to get. So tell a joke about cats.
Cats are the worst. A dog.
You got anything else to add?
A dog less than 50 pounds is a cat, and cats are pointless.
Ron Swanson.
Yeah. So you had asked me about the practical steps, and then we went into all the behavior stuff, like, really quickly.
We did, yeah.
So
sorry.
I'll just go over the practical steps that we use, real quick. And this is what I said on the Dave Ramsey show: is we made it so that we are all a month ahead on our expenses at all times.
That's such good advice.
So our direct deposits go straight to our savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the 25th of every month, we reconcile last month's budget, create next month's budget, and transfer the amount that we need over to our checking for spending, for rent, and all those sorts of things. Getting that 1 month ahead is huge. Okay, because I used to have coworkers who they would complain that our paychecks were going to be on the 5th of the month. How our rent is due on the 1st.
Right.
You know that you get paid every other Friday. You know that. And you can't adjust for that. That's, for lack of a better word, that's kind of pathetic. As an adult, right? Getting a month ahead, you don't care when you get, I don't care that I get paid. Or when I get paid, rather. Because I'm just going to transfer it over on the 25th of every month, and that's that. I did it just on Friday. It's the 24th. But regardless, okay. So that's the first step. The next thing is you have to. Simon Sinek says, start with why, right?
Yeah.
As a single man, or if you're married, or if you're in a couple, whatever, you have to prioritize your goals. Their prioritization should be, paying off your high interest debt, and then building an emergency fund, and then, or those can be switched, and then investing. But sometimes people just want to ignore their debt and start saving for a house. It doesn't matter that the order of that can be changed. What matters more is that you are on a clear goal. And then if you're in a couple, you need to be on the same page. Yeah. Crystal and I just sat down and said, hey, we're going to New Zealand. I'm going to be taking some training. I need to be going back to school, and we want to have a fully 6-month funded emergency fund, but all by this date. We laid out exactly how we're going to get there before we leave for New Zealand. And boom. It's very clear. There's no room for ambiguity with this stuff.
I want to just pause on what you just said. If you are married, do not budget alone. Don't come up with plans without your spouse. And if you're a man and she does the budgeting, don't let her come up with a budget without you. You guys are a team. You do it together. She doesn't manage the money. You guys manage the money. You don't manage the money. You guys manage the money. You have shared responsibility.
Yeah.
There's so many things about that, but we won't go there.
Yeah. And so Crystal and I we'd sit down and create the budget together every month. Now it's pretty much the same every month. So I just do the reconciliation, and then she checks it to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Yeah. It's kind of different, but it's the same thing. We're on the same page, right? And we're accountable to each other.
Mhm.
Another aspect of that, if you're in a couple, I highly recommend not being on your own bank account.
Yeah, merge
I
your accounts.
everything every dollar that I own, Crystal, unless we're legally unable to, like, she can't be on my IRA account, right?
Yeah,
But every checking savings account she's also on. There is no account
yeah,
that she's on that I'm not on, and that
yeah,
is for full transparency. I
yeah.
hate this. Oh well, I have my account, and then I contribute this much to the joint account for bills. No, 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 no. That is room for disaster. And then the other piece of that is, um, when I worked at the bank, I dealt with this all the time. Couples would, um, that shared an account,
Hmm.
would, if they were about to get a divorce, they'd go in and one would try to drain the account first, right? And
Oh,
all
I
my,
heard a story about that recently.
yeah, it's terrible. All my coworkers always said, "See, that's why you never share an account when you're married." And I'm like, okay, you're that means that you're planning to get divorced.
Yep.
As a Christian, that's
Mm.
not that's just not a thing. I
Yeah.
don't I don't
Also,
know how else to put it.
also though, the courts are not going to look favorably on the spouse that drained the income at
Well,
all.
as long as if they can formulate a trust in the children's name and transfer the money in there, then there's nothing the court can do.
That usually didn't happen though.
I've seen it happen multiple times.
I know you. Yeah, no.
But
But I,
I also yeah, worked at the bank where I, anecdotal. Um, so you need to be on the same page. Okay. Start with why you need to have the same goals, work together, be on the same page, and then I think that's pretty much it. Oh,
start there.
control your spending. Just figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
Crystal and I decided that we were still going to have our free spending money. Way
Yeah.
more than mom and dad, who spend like I think $20 a
Yeah,
month.
they're boring. Dad
Way
has like 10. I'm
way
like,
more
Dad,
than
come on.
way more than Colin and Audrey, who have like 10 cents per month. Good for them, but no. When we first got married, it was like $50 a month.
Yeah.
That's how much we each got to spend, still from that same account. But I wasn't accountable to Crystal for if I wanted to buy uh, food or books, whatever I wanted. That's my money,
Yeah.
and it's very key to have that, just so you have a little bit of freedom to
Hmm.
spend as you want. So
Yeah.
have some, but otherwise, other besides that, control your spending. Don't go out to eat so often. Don't drink so much alcohol.
Definitely stop drinking so much alcohol for your body and for your
Oh,
bank account.
I
The two B's.
yeah, but the other thing too, on this, and then I'll shut up. Your car.
Mm.
Spending excess money on a car is the most ridiculous thing. Okay, I had a coworker who every year went into the Toyota dealership and leased the next most brand new car possible.
Wasn't it a Tundra that he would get?
It was a Tacoma for the 2022, and then he went in and got the 2023 Camry the second it was available. And he's like,
Mm.
"Oh, it's so convenient. They're so nice to me. All my information is in their system." It's like, yeah, they're making so much money off of you.
Yeah.
And then
$600 a month.
yeah, the same person would complain that they could never move out of their parents' house, that they're never going to make enough money. There's that's all these behavior issues. At
Yeah.
some point, you get to a point in your life where you're like, this Lumi is great. For those of
Well,
you
wait,
listening,
hold on. The way you said that was disrespectful to what the Lumina is.
if you're listening, look up 2000 Chevy Lumina.
Yeah, and prepare
That
to
is,
have your mind blown by the
that is
best car
the
in America.
that is the car that Keaton drove, and then he gave it to me for free. And it's the only car that we have working as of today.
Yeah, that's the
It's
car I
a
bought for $100 from my
yes.
buddy. Well, so kind of. I sold the car that I got for free to a mechanic when the transmission went out for 700, and Garrett sold me that Lumina with 74,000 miles on it for $800. So within 24 hours, I had spent $100 of my own money on a car, and
That
that car has never had mechanic problems ever.
well, yeah, earlier
Well,
this
maybe
year.
when you started drying
I
it.
know. I'm the curse. So all that to say, you have to get to this point where you don't care.
Chelsea was so mad at me for buying that car.
Oh, I
And then
know. and
She
now
came
she
to love
loves
it.
it. Yeah, because it's very comfortable, but also you realize that you don't a car. The purpose of a car is transportation from A to B.
Yeah.
Our Now cars are about a status symbol, and there's so much to say that in America, uh, our luxuries have become to be seen as a necessary expense when it's just
Yeah.
something basic, right? Food used to be like something that could be a shortage, but we go out to restaurants and spend 20 times as much as we should on the same meal that we could make at home just for the
Yeah.
convenience. And now it's seen as like a necessity to be able to go out every Friday night or whatever.
Yeah.
That is a sign of um,
Entitlement.
entitlement. Yeah, we keep on moving the goalposts of what is expected to be necessary as a consumer, and it's
Yeah. And
kind of
normal.
pathetic and normal. Yeah, it's constantly
Mhm.
expanding, but it's a mindset when you get up to the stoplight and you don't care that the other person is like looking at you like your car is making some weird noises, dude, and you're like, yeah, it's done that for the last 60,000 miles, and I don't care.
You're like,
the
yeah, it was only
point
$300,
the
whatever.
point of this vehicle is to get me to the store, get me to work and back. I don't care about the rest as long as it
Yeah.
does that reliably.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, men, there's going to come a day when if you're not married, you will be married, and you're going to have to buy your wife a nice car.
mhm.
She's going to want a car to haul around your kids, and so just keep that in mind. You will always be driving the lesser. You should be driving the lesser vehicle.
Right.
You remember that's Garrett told a story or told me once. I was getting all up in fits about something Chelsea wanted to buy. It was a pair of boots. She wanted me to buy them. They were $150, and I was like, nah. They're actually the boots I'm wearing right now. And this is right before we got married. It was for our engagement photos, and she had traveled to Colorado to come like do these engagement photos with her friends, and it was a whole thing. And I'm like, she wants to buy these boots, and they're $150, and I'm like complaining to Garrett. And Garrett, who's been married 5 years, he's just listening, and he goes, sometimes you just got to buy the damn boots. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten for marriage. So sometimes you're going to have to buy a car for your woman. She's not, you might be willing to drive the cheap beater car to save y'all some money. She's not. And she's a queen. Treat her like a queen.
And what year is the Jeep that Chelsea drives?
2010.
Okay, so 13 years old. Not a 1 year old nice car, right? It's still older.
No, we're about to pay cash for a Toyota Highlander.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we've been saving for that one for quite a while, and then I'll get the Jeep. So I'll get the 13-year-old car instead of the current car that I have that is a 2001. It's 22 years old.
Yeah, and you gonna sell that to me as well? Because I need a new car now.
Well, I'll let you guys handle that. But anything else? Still, we're at an hour and 18 minutes. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I gotta go pee, so I'm good.
Hey, it's always keeping it real here on the Man I Want to Be podcast, as it should be. Well, Dill, thanks for joining. Hey, if you like this episode, please like and subscribe, share it with a friend. Hey, maybe consider starting a small group with guys at your church. That would be a great idea to use this content to help other men grow into the men that they want to be. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That helps us out a lot. And until next time, this is the Man I Want to Be podcast.